Welcome to the Energy Fix podcast, Chris. Thanks so much for being here today.
Tansy, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to jump into some pretty cool conversations.
I, you know, One word that you call yourself, I guess two words, is the chief scientist. And so I want to expand past that, Chris. I want the listener to know you as the human, not necessarily the chief scientist. And so, what is a word or a phrase that you're really embodying, that you're really connecting to right now in this season of your life?
So it's a great question, and I had to ponder it. I'm glad you allowed me to ponder it before we started the podcast. Um, and the phrase, and this may surprise you, is that success is really boring. And the way that I kind of come to this is you think about Michael Phelps, right? The most decorated Olympic athlete in history. And Michael Phelps swam the same pool and the same laps, and he ate the same 15,000 calories a day. Imagine, it would be kind of nice to be able to eat that much, but then you have to put out that many calories on a daily basis. And he didn't do this for days. He didn't do this for weeks. He didn't do it for months. He didn't even do it for years. He did it for a decade. And, to the average person, this sounds really boring. Like, you're swimming the same thing, you're eating the same stuff every day. And but you got to figure out how to do that. And you got to figure out how to do that and enjoy it. And I have 15-year-old twins. And so I'm having these conversations like, not everything that you're going to do in the path to success is going to be fun. And success can be, business success, financial success, relationship success, physical success. It's often going to be boring, and you really have to work on your mindset to program it so that you can, I don't know, suffer through the boring times. And often that's tied to a why, like, why are you doing this? And I think that's really important to get you through the hard times. And at the same point, it doesn't matter in some context the why. That gives you a lot of strength. You've just got to figure out how to muscle through this kind of boredom.
Chris, so I love that phrase is your phrase. And what's really weird too? I had an interview right before you, and we literally talked about success and Michael Phelps. So it's like a deja vu. This is really weird.
Universe.
Yeah. But I love that that phrase is coming to your heart because I find it interesting. You have done so many things, and we're going to be talking about that and just really diving into your experience. But you've done so many things. You've had so many moments of success in so many different ways. And yet, you are saying success is really boring. So, how do you personally connect to always keeping that excitement, that joy, that desire to keep moving forward and not getting bored?
Yeah. So I literally couldn't be more fortunate in the position that I am in, right? I'm a scientist. I love geeky, sciencey stuff, and I get to get on a show like yours and share geeky, sciencey stuff with people. And an outcome of geeky, sciencey stuff sharing, if people are moved in the way that I think the research should move them, is that they buy our products. And so now I have an income and I have a living. And then another outcome of them buying their products is they turn around and they share amazing testimonials about their experience on our products with us. So I get to be what I like to be, what I think I'm good at, right? Super sciencey and a communicator. And then I get the benefits of people just sharing thank you. Like, thank you for doing this because of the positive impact on their life. So that really does drive me. And I do think that there's something, and I don't know where it necessarily comes from me, is, I will have this conversation again and again and again. I've had it on one-on-ones. I've had it on other podcasts. I've had it on, I don't know, just phone calls, right, with different people and potential providers. And I don't know. There's a part of me that doesn't see it as boring. So maybe the kind of boring moniker is coming from the outside, looking in. And so I think that goes to, what have I done to figure out how it's not boring? And it's geeky, it's sciencey, and I'm benefiting people like that. None of it's ironically boring, even though it's all boring.
And you just said something really important. You actually mentioned it twice about the community feedback
Mm,
and how it's benefiting people. And that goes right back to what you said in the beginning. It's all about your why and where you're coming from, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Oh, Chris, I have to say, when I was learning about you, I got like this picture in my head of like this really cool, you say nerdy, I call it cool, Marvel
Thank
comic
you.
character.
Maybe I need to shift.
Yeah, yeah. Like this Marvel comic character, right? Like you do all of these really cool, what would seemingly be separate things, and you pull it all together. You're part scientist, you're part Vitality Sherpa, you are this part-time improv comic. And so I'm really curious. When did this whole journey really begin for you? And was there a moment that cracked you wide open on your path? And maybe even one that made you almost want to walk away?
Okay, right. So cracking wide open, man, I really wish, so many people in the space have a pain to passion story, right? The pain of themselves, the pain of a loved one, and then that's driving their passion. And I love those stories. That doesn't necessarily apply to me. And then, maybe altruistic, which would typically be driven by some sort of pain to passion, maybe seeing suffering of others and wanting to move in a direction. Mine is born out of this understanding that I was going to become an entrepreneur, right? So it is not altruistic in any ways. It is in fact very materialistic. So I'm a 14-year-old boy. I have a poster on my wall. And by the way, I wrote all of this down in my book, Live Longer and Better. I've got a poster of a Lamborghini Countach on my wall. It's beautiful candy apple red with the gull wing doors open. I can smell the leather, and I want one of these as a 14-year-old. Like, this is an aspiration. And this was a very long time ago. So today you might, go to the internet and try and figure out how do you make enough money to have a Lamborghini, in which case you might find a bunch of people leaning against rented Lamborghinis trying to sell you how to earn a Lamborghini. Back then, I ended up finding an article. I'm sure it was like in a Motor Trend or some motor magazine that was like, and the summary that I took away and still carry today is, if you want one of these supercars, specifically at that time a Lamborghini Countach, then you become a neurosurgeon. If you want more than one, you should become an entrepreneur. I'm a 14-year-old young kid. I would like more than one. So, boom, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And then the journey is like, well, what does that look like, right? What do you study when you're going to school when you want to be an entrepreneur? And at the time, today you might say, oh, you would go to an entrepreneur school. I'm not sure that's the best path. The path I chose, partly because there was no entrepreneurship programs. Actually, when I was researching for the book, this is so long ago, there was only like one entrepreneurial class in the country at the time. And now there's all sorts of, courses that you can go through for entrepreneurship. But my thought process was, what's the fastest way to get an education to the highest salary so that I can then have money to invest in a business? And for me, love science, love math, engineering, study that in 4 years, ostensibly. That's not how long it took me, but in 4 years, you could have a very nice salary and have money. A couple things fell apart there. It took me more than 4 years. Actually, took me six. I did get minors in computer science and math. And then I actually started a company while I was still in college, manufacturing this molecule that we're going to talk about today. So it's not altruistic, but it ends up in this very altruistic place again, where I get to help people and experience them vicariously through their experiences. I guess they share with me their experiences on the product, and they're positive. So it's amazing.
I love that. First off, I agree. Coaching and courses can be so helpful, so very helpful. I mean, I do stuff like that myself, but messy course redirection is, I have found, even for myself, is so it can be really life transformative in how you are building your work, but also in how you're finding authentically your own way of doing the work and
Mhm.
building the success that you want to build. So I love that. And I love that you stuck with it. That's pretty amazing, especially from a 14-year-old boy's perspective of just wanting that Lamborghini, because there's a lot of hurdles in between that and actually getting to where you're at now.
Yes. No, that's very true.
Yeah.
I don't have the Lamborghini yet, and also the car has changed, but I am still diligently working for it.
What's the
And I
car
guess I
now?
have to get two at some point, but I'm still working on the first one.
What's the car now?
It is actually it doesn't even exist. It's the te I have a Tesla. My wife
Uh,
has a Tesla. We love Teslas. It's a Tesla Roadster.
well, I feel that you're manifesting that into existence. So keep on it. Keep on it.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, Chris, let's dive into the whole concept of longevity. We
Mm,
hear this word longevity is thrown around all the time. It's what we're going to be talking about in this episode. And so I want to just get real right off the bat. Most people are literally just trying to survive their day-to-day existence.
mm,
And then that thought of like actually thriving into longevity and having extension in their years may not even be on the forefront of their brain. So what does longevity really mean to you? Not just in a scientific sense, but in a lived, embodied, real world sense.
So I think you bring up you say a lot of people might not, and I'm going to share a lot of people don't actually embrace it. And in fact, even I did a longevity summit. I interviewed 55 experts in longevity, and I will name drop here. I got to interview Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield, Dr. Stephen Gundry, and across these 55 experts, it was incredibly inconsistent. I asked every single one of them, how long do you want to live, and how long can humans live? And if you're a longevity expert, like the idea should be you should want to live as long as you can live. But people and even experts are unable at this point to separate living in some sort of infirmed state from living longer, right? And so when you ask, hey, would you like to live longer? I'll give you another context. The molecule that we'll talk about today is responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history. It's peer-reviewed published research. Very proud to say my lab provided the material and were mentioned in that study. When I share this, I'll throw in some pseudo improv here. When I share that these rats live 90% longer, I get two responses. And one is if they're from New York, they're like, why would we want rats to live longer? Like, you're an evil person, Chris. You need to bury this research. And then often, just like you kind of alluded to, people share why would I want to live longer? Because what they're hearing is, because they can't separate living longer from living infirmed, how much longer in an infirmed state would you like to live? And I think for most people, the answer is not that long, right? Depending on the level of infirmity, like how and how bad a shape they are. But if you change the question and you say, if you had the same mental capacity that you have today and you had the same physical capacity that you have today, would you then be interested in living longer? And I'll share, there's still a small percentage of people that I have conversations with who are like, no, I wouldn't. And, I personally think there's some opportunity for evaluating your life. I think there's a lot of, if you're delivering value like you and I are doing, then there's a lot to embrace in living a lot longer. But for the most part, if you reframe that question as same mental capacity, same physical capacity, then people are significantly more interested in living longer. And so when you ask me what it means to live longer, and I'll share this in that longevity summit, and I also have a podcast. In that podcast, I ask people, um, like I said, how long do they want to live? When you're thinking about how I approach to longevity, I kind of have two answers, right? One of them is today. With today's technology, like I said, I ask everyone how long do they want to live and how long humans can live. And I actually have kind of two answers to the how long humans can live. Where we're at today, I think it's probably in the 120s, and that's the near future. Where we're going to be really quickly, I believe and hope is infinitely. And here's where I come from, right? And I know that there's kind of metaphysical considerations, and people are like, we're supposed to die. I would very much like to be contributing to society in perpetuity. And here's where I come from. In 1950, medical information doubled every 50 years, every 50 years. The time I started quoting this, which frankly was at least 9 months ago, that medical information was doubling every 3 months. What does it mean to double medical information every 3 months? It means that at the beginning of 2025, we have a certain amount of information. And at the end of 2025, we have 16 times as much information as we had in the beginning, right? So,
Mhm.
so we're not just saying, hey, we added again. We have 16 times more information. And this doesn't really, since I started quoting it, take into account AI. And I think AI doesn't do maybe what we think it does. Like it helps you write papers faster, and there's some critiques going on about people writing papers with AI. I'm not really opposed to that. Give it some data, make sure you proofread it, but that doesn't speed things up that much, right? Like up that much. The reality is writing a paper is not that time consuming relative to doing the research. I think where the value comes in is you have all of this data and you have all of these experimental ideas that you want to run through, and you can give that to AI and it can say, you're most likely going to find success here and maybe in these three spaces. So now we've taken 100 potential experiments that the scientist has to do their best job to guess which one to run. And now you're using this significant amount of intelligence with data to define which ones are actually more likely to come out with positive incomes. So I think not only do we have 16 times more data, the data continues to get better and better.
Mm, that's incredible. That's incredible. I want to go back a little bit too. And you were saying about people not quite understanding when you were talking about longevity, people not quite understanding what it actually means to
Mhm.
live in longevity, right? How many times have you, Chris, talked to people and they're like, oh, they're doing something dumb in their 20s or 30s, right? Like living completely recklessly in many ways, and they're like, don't worry about it. It's fine. I'm only 25. I'll worry about it when I'm 80 or whatever, right? And like all of this stuff then starts to compile and
Mhm.
become this big bubble of what is now, I think, perceived aging quality and that
Mhm.
decline, right? And so the fact that you were able to show that your molecule can extend, do a life extension of 90% in mammals, that's incredible. And so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about
Mhm.
that study. That stat alone completely dropped my jaw.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many other people. And so I would love to know when you discovered that, what was your first feeling when you saw those results? Were you in awe? Were you in skepticism? What did you do? And where did you go from there?
So I would love to be able to sit here and tell a story of I saw those results and I jumped on them immediately and recognized the significance and had no preoccupations but I was with awe, yes, and with skepticism, absolutely. So kind of the story leading up to that particular study is so this molecule, right? I'm holding up a model of a molecule. If you're listening, just imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms in the shape of a soccer ball. It was discovered in 1985 at Rice University here in Houston, where we're based. And the three scientists who discovered actually went on to win the Nobel Prize for that discovery, Nobel Prize in chemistry. The molecule's absolutely amazing. The way I describe it is it performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. And this is sometimes where people get nervous. We're like, I thought this was a health product. I thought this was a healthy molecule. You said inks, batteries, tires, and photocells. Depending on how biohackerish your audience is, no one woke up today, looked at their car, and thought, my car battery. I wonder what components of my car battery I should be taking on a daily basis in order to be healthier. And the story kind of gets a little worse leading into this study, which is the shape, there's 20 of these shapes on the exterior of the soccer ball molecule that are the same as benzene. Now, benzene is ubiquitous in our society. Just to prove that, look around where you're at. Anything that's plastic would just disappear because its foundational molecule is the benzene ring. So but one of the problems with benzene is if it's on its own, it's known to be toxic and known to be carcinogenic. So with 20 of those effective rings, its chemistry is a little bit different, but the same shape on the exterior of this cage, they assumed it would be toxic. So they put it in a toxicity study. In that study, they gave, in this case, Wistar rats, one group was given water, the control group, one was given olive oil, a semi-control group, and then one was given olive oil with, we call this molecule the ESS60 molecule. And that's where instead of being toxic, the test subjects lived 90% longer than the control group. So they go to publish this. We're aware of this research. And I think the way that it most came onto our awareness. So you read these things and you see them and you move on. In our minds, we were very much locked into, if this makes better inks, batteries, tires, and photocells, then that's going to be the application where it's ultimately going to explode. It hasn't. And the biggest part of the biggest reason is because it's a very expensive molecule to manufacture. We could get into that maybe a little bit later. But so here we see this in kind of the health space. We see this study and we're like, we didn't really jump on it. And in fact, the opposite would be true. I would say in that study came out in mid 2012. In mid 2013, we started getting phone calls from this crazy, wacky group of people called biohackers, right? I can say that affectionately because I am now a biohacker.
Oh, we're
And
all crazy. Yeah.
yeah, we're all, yeah, we'll reference biohacker craziness maybe a couple of times. But they call and they're like, hey, I read that study about that stuff you put in inks, batteries, tires, and photocells, and the fact that the rats live 90% longer. I was wondering how much should I consume on a daily basis? And my business partner and I are conservative nanomaterial scientists with our nanomaterial scientist hat on, and we're like, I think you should consume none of this, right? This is what we sell to research institutions around the world. We added not for human consumption to the labeling. So you think in 1991, when we start the company and start manufacturing all the way to mid 2013, we don't have not for human consumption on the labeling because, well, no, there's no crazy biohackers who are interested in ingesting it. Now, we did add for not for human consumption to the labeling, and I want to be very clear. In the literature, it was clear that this was safe, right? In fact, you've got the longest extension of life in mammals in history because of this molecule, but we're just conservative carbon nanomaterial scientists. And this is kind of interesting because the journey with biohackers continues. We add not for human consumption to our labeling in mid 2013. And we're getting 2 to 3 phone calls per week of crazy, wacky biohackers going, hey, Chris, my knee pain is gone. And that conversation looked like me saying, you mean the knee pain of your rat, right? Because it literally says not for human consumption on the labeling. And they're like, yeah. Hey, if my rat weighs 275 pounds and does HIIT training on Tuesdays and Thursdays, do you think they should increase the dose on Tuesdays and Thursdays when they're doing the HIIT training? We know what's going on. We're comfortable because it's in the literature, but we're still uncomfortable in this space. And my business partner and I are getting together on a quarterly basis to say, do we want to get into the supplement industry? And we continuously just say no. And actually, from about mid 2013 to the end of 2017, every quarter we're like, no. I think it's generous to say that the supplement industry is challenged, right? It's a challenged industry. And if you compare that to the exacting nature of delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials to research institutions around the world, they're just night and day. And so even in that time frame between 2013 and 2017, I found a research paper that said that 50% of the supplements that are on the market, so they just purchased some supplements off the market, 50% of them did not have in them what they said they had in them, right? And so this was fodder for like, no, we don't want to get into this industry. Like, this is not what we do. This is not the exacting natures of how we like to operate our business. Finally, at the end of 2017, a guy with a huge YouTube following started talking about all the benefits he was getting, taking it on a daily basis. And then our phone went from 2 to 3 calls a week to 10 calls a day. Yeah. And so then at that quarterly meeting, which was actually in the conference room right behind me, in that quarterly meeting, we're like, okay, this is an entrepreneurial opportunity bigger than we realized. And we both looked back at that peer-reviewed published research that said 50% of the supplements in the market don't have them what they say they have in them. We're like, that's going to happen in this space. And we're a unique company because we have the lab. We've been working with this molecule now for 34 years. We know how to produce products at an exacting standard. We really need to help keep consumers safe. And so we decided to get in the business after two additional questions. And the first one was a moral question. Are we comfortable selling it? I take it. My wife takes it. Everybody on our team here takes it. By the way, that's not a requirement to work at the company. You don't have to take the product. They have access to testimonials and the research. And so everybody here does take it. And the next one is you've got the legal aspects, the FTC and the FDA. You got to cross the T's, dot the I's, and we did that. And so yeah, that was in beginning of 2018 is when we really started bringing this to market. So I totally sidetracked the conversation there, but that's kind of the study and where it led us really to kind of here today.
That is fascinating. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine like having that at your fingertips, knowing that it can create such such transformation and health for somebody, but still not quite knowing, is it even safe for human consumption? I mean, how, without having longevity in your studies, how would you even know and be able to truly say, yes, this is totally safe? So, what was it that made you step back and say, yes, we can officially do this? We can create this supplement.
Well, I think it's really the business and kind of mindset. So scientifically, as people are sharing, hey, my knee pain is gone. Do I take more when I'm doing hit training? I mean, my rat's doing hit training, right? When that's going on, we could have stopped that, right? And the only reason we didn't stop it is because we really were comfortable with it. Like we understood from the literature that it was safe, but we still weren't interested in getting into the supplement market, right? The concepts of, hey, other companies are going to come into space. They're going to create an inferior, not even just an inferior product. There's products on the market in the kind of industrial space that don't even have the molecule in it that claim to have it in it. Like this is as bad or worse than the 50% of products don't have in them what they say they have in them. And so those weren't even really considerations until our phone starts ringing 10 times a day. And then, it's those inflection points which cause you to pull back and think about things and what's really going on here. And is there an opportunity from a business perspective? Absolutely. Now, like it smacked us in the face, right? Like it was there, right? You kind of alluded, hey, why didn't you did you jump on this right away? And the answer is no, we didn't, right? And then it smacks us in the face, and then we start thinking about, well, what are the ramifications if we don't get in it now? And what are the ramifications if we do get in it? And that's ultimately what caused us to kind of flip. And I'm very proud of this. Most supplement companies in any space, and especially in this space, don't do research. We have continued to do research. Not only have we continued to do research, we've actually published research. And so most supplement companies don't do research, they don't publish research. We're very much an outlier in that space, and we're scientifically driven. We're working on, and I could tell you for various reasons, like an HSCRP, which is a high sensitivity C reactive protein. It's an inflammatory marker. We're working on studies there. We're working on clinical trials with sleep and actually HSCRP and additional inflammatory markers. So we are it turns out we're as weird of a supplement company as our journey might imply.
Yeah. And so everything that you just said there is exactly why I talk to my clients, my patients all the time and talk about the importance of really spending your dollars, spending your energy and your time using supplementation that is reputable, that is
Mm.
researched, that is high quality, that you can trust, knowing the company and that you can trust them, because just like you said, it is so imperative that you know what you're actually putting in your body or not and think that you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, I have kind of a, I talk about Amazon, and I think this is the story may fit into what you just described, which is you've got to be careful on Amazon. Our products are on Amazon. We have them there. Some people like it. We actually ship as fast as Amazon typically, just not on the weekends. Amazon does, we don't. But people are very much surprised by how quickly they get our products. What does it mean to have a 5-star review on a product on Amazon? Right? Like, what does that really mean? I kind of joke that it means that Amazon harassed the particular consumer and they left a review prior to death. Right? Like this is, we're going extreme. So let me give you an example. Like vitamin C, something that everybody's taken. You order a bottle of vitamin C, we can be pretty confident that people did not even count how many tablets were in the bottle. We can be absolutely confident that they didn't weigh them on a scientific scale to know, let's just say in this case, that they were 1 gram each. We're pretty confident they didn't grind them up, stick it into the HPLC they have in their garage or lab, and confirm that it was ascorbic acid. So like, what does a 5-star really mean, right? And again, facetiously, it means that they were harassed and they left a 5-star review before they passed away. So you have to be very careful about accepting. And I think the rating system is great for like a phone or, right, because that's about the phone and the fact that it worked and people are happy that it worked. Um, and that's just not true of supplements. And I think you're exactly right when people will ask me, how do I go out and find a good supplement? The answer is not what I wish it was, like just go to this one website and everything there is great. You've got to spend the time, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever your perspective is, you need to spend the time. You need to understand the science behind it, the science behind the people behind it, the people behind it, and have confidence there. That's going to be the best indicator of where to get good products.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 1000%. Well, okay, so let's expand into ESS60. For those who are new to this world and they're not even, I mean, you gave a great explanation, but let's go even deeper. How is this different than any other anti-aging supplements that are out there that promise the world but rarely actually deliver? And what is it doing once it gets into the body?
Yeah, I think the what is it doing? I'll kind of go back and continue the journey, right? So 2018 comes around, we ask ourselves the moral question, we decide to start bringing this product to market. And then my role at one point was chief scientist of a carbon nanomaterial company. Now it's chief scientist of a supplement company, right? These are very different kind of roles. And the first thing that I was tasked with is a 90% extension of life a big deal, right? So dig into the literature. You have this intuition that it is like there's no GNC product or whatever, even on Amazon saying, hey, extend life by XYZ. Like that's those. So you have this intuition, but you dig in, and the next best way to live longer is calorie restriction. Like that's the next best researched way to live longer. If you reduce your calorie consumption by 30%, you can extend your life by 30%. I call that the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. Nobody likes to sign up for that particular diet. They need better marketing, I think. And that's a 30% extension of life. So that was the first thing. Yes, 90% is pretty spectacular. Remember, it's in Wistar rats, and so there's absolutely considerations on that particular applicability to humans. The next one is, okay, so why did these rats live longer? What's going on in rats to extend their life? In this case, Wistar rats. And if you look at the medical community, they tend to think about aging from two perspectives. And this is not always true, but relatively kind of consistently true, which is from an oxidation and an inflammation process, right? And I like to put, we're in Texas, so I like to put big old check marks on stuff. And the first one is, as an antioxidant, there's an ad hoc study out on the web showing us to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. there's peer-reviewed published research showing us to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So as an antioxidant, absolutely. And we'll come back to that because it works very differently and it works in the mitochondria, which is pretty amazing. But for now, big old check mark on antioxidant. When it comes to inflammation, the FDA, you got to be careful because the FDA, and I think they've done the right thing here, but the FDA has equated conversations about inflammation with the diseases of inflammation, which are also the diseases of aging, right? So arthritis, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, cancers. And so if I were to say, hey, we address chronic inflammation, what the FDA hears is me claiming I cure cancer, Alzheimer's, arthritis, cardiovascular disease. We are not claiming that. Like you're grinning appropriately. There's so much more research that we need to go in to be able to make those claims. What the FDA does allow us to say is that we address inflammation, at least as it relates to exercise-induced inflammation, right? So we've all had the tough workout or just walked longer one day than normal, and then that next day you feel that inflammation in your body. We absolutely can, FDA allows us to say that we address that type of inflammation. So we have at least a check mark, maybe not a big old check mark, but a check mark next to inflammation. And then this kind of evolved, right? Because, and actually I had one theory prior to this, which is still fairly applicable. Our most consistent testimonial is people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. Now, by the way, just to pause here, I'm not aware of anything that you can take in the morning that positively impacts sleep. I'm aware that you can get exercise in the morning. That'll positively impact sleep. You can get exposure to the sun, right? And sunlight will get you your circadian rhythm in line with the rising and falling of the sun, and that will positively impact your sleep. But to take something and positively impact sleep in the morning, to take it in the morning, is extremely unique. And I think ours is the only one that I'm aware of that will do that. And if you're improving sleep, we all know that improving sleep will improve your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. So that was kind of step one. Step two is inflammation and oxidation. And then next we're looking at, what are kind of some of the deeper theories. But I've been talking a little while here. Maybe you got some questions or like, okay, so I'll hop into it. You shook your head. No, let's keep. So our current theory is the BOSS theory. So that stands for buffering oxidative stress system. We know from peer-reviewed published research that this ESS60 molecule gets into the mitochondria. We also know from way back in the 90s that the exterior of this cage can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles, and that'll come into play here in a sec. Brief overview. Mitochondria, you've heard it before. It's the powerhouse of every cell. There's between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria in every cell in your body, except for your blood cells, which have 0, and your brain and neurons, which have 2 million. I will always find it fascinating how much energy our nervous system uses relative to the rest. It's amazing. Like every power source, there is a negative byproduct. You think about your car going down the road, there's exhaust. You think about a power plant, there's a smokestack. In the case of mitochondria, there's reactive oxygen species. These are negatively charged particles. I kind of picture them like little bumper cars. Everything they bump into, they're rusting and causing oxidative stress, oxidative damage, ultimately inflammaging. And that happens when the mitochondria doesn't manage those reactive oxygen species. It normally manages them really well with 2 antioxidants called glutathione and melatonin. So these are interacting with these reactive oxygen species, preventing them from doing damage. But what happens when you stress a mitochondria? Well, the first question is, how do you stress a mitochondria? I like to joke, you live in this modern world, you have stressed mitochondria, like period. Like it's a plane flight, it's the lights coming off of your monitor, it's
It's just a
smog.
given.
Yeah, it's a done deal, right? So we have it, we have this stressed mitochondria. Now they're producing more reactive oxygen species than the internal glutathione and melatonin can manage. And that's where this ESS60 molecule comes in. It holds on to those negatively charged particles, those reactive oxygen species, so they can't act like little bumper cars causing damage until that mitochondria replenishes the glutathione, replenishes the melatonin, then they can grab those reactive oxygen species and take care of them appropriately. So I have kind of a fun analogy for this BOSS process. And maybe you agree with me. I think all biological analogies should start with Mardi Gras. I mean, a lot of biology happens at Mardi Gras, so why not? It's the end of Mardi Gras. You're on Bourbon Street, and you have these drunk reactive oxygen species running around, smashing windows, busting up cars, doing whatever, oxidative stress, oxidative damage, inflammaging that they do. And you have the New Orleans Police Department, the glutathione and the melatonin, coming onto Bourbon Street, handcuffing themselves to those reactive oxygen species and getting them off of Bourbon Street. But what does the New Orleans Police Department do when they're overwhelmed? They take those reactive oxygen species and they put them in a paddy wagon. They attach them to the exterior of this cage so they can't do any damage. And then when that New Orleans Police Department can replenish the glutathione, replenish the melatonin, then they can handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. And so that's why we say that the ESS60 molecule is the boss, a buffering oxidative stress system. And if you think about it, if you're reducing the negative impact of stress mitochondria, you should have head to toe testimonials because there's mitochondria in every cell in your body except for blood cells. So, and that's in fact what we have. Like from the beginning, starting with, in the example that I gave, ostensibly, right? Anytime I'm giving examples, so we'll throw in our FDA disclaimer here, right? So the FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. When I share kind of anecdotes, which I think we're taught to believe anecdotes should have no value, and that's absolutely incorrect. Without anecdotes, we don't have theories, and then without theories, we don't do research, and without the research, we don't understand things. So anecdotes do play a role. But as I share anecdotes, just assume they're not going to happen to you. Dig into the research. If you find it compelling, we'll have links for people at the end of the show.
Mm. This is so interesting. And so as you were talking, you mentioned about the nervous system, and I thought immediately, oh, by the way, for the listeners, side note that has nothing to do with this, your supplement is MyVitalC, right?
Yes.
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 Yeah,
It's
just so
behind
we
me.
yeah,
Yeah.
just so we have a name for it. So yes, MyVitalC. So as you were talking, you talked about the nervous system, and I immediately thought, well, I wonder how great this is for nervous system regulation. And when that nervous system does get dysregulated, is this something that can help to bring you back into balance? Not to mention calming anxiety, calming mental stress, getting the brain back into balance. You're shaking your head. I feel I'm onto something here.
Yeah, so I'll share two kind of testimonials that support one, if you're again reducing the negative impact of stress mitochondria, like you should see head to toe testimonials, which we have. And then very specifically on like emotions and brain balance. And think about our most consistent testimonial was focus and energy during the day when they take it in the morning. So one of the testimonials, I sent some product to a lady in the UK. She sent her video back and she started off her video with, I'm in the middle of quitting smoking, which if you've ever been around somebody quitting smoking, I was like, this is going to be a horrible video. Like nobody is very happy about quitting smoking. They don't have good days. There are only bad days, I think. My parents quit as I was growing up multiple times, actually. And so I was like, this is going to be a horrible video. It actually turned out to be a pretty good video and then really kind of ramped up when she shared this. She said, I found that I have a longer fuse with my toddler. Right. And if you've ever had children, there's a fuse, and some days the fuse is really long and you perform quote unquote perfect parenting. And other days the fuse is a lot shorter and the parenting is less perfect, we can say. So that is about, and again, it could be just better sleep. Like if you just get better sleep, you have better command of your emotions. But either way, like that's one example. The next one I find kind of funny. I try not to work on weekends, but every now and then I'm here on weekends. And this is probably like 4.5 years ago. I'm here at the office on a Saturday, and this guy knocks on the door, and I went to open it, and it felt very clandestine. He was like, "Do you have any ESS60?" I was like, "Yes, I do. Come in." And then he gives me a credit card. It's like, "Well, we don't have a cash register. I'll be right back. I have to go give me your information. I actually have to purchase your product through the website and then hand it to you." So, of course, I remember this guy. And about 3 months later, I see him in the lobby, and the Cassandra, who is taking care of him, shares with me this is his third order. And at the time, we were running some sort of 3 bottle special, and he was buying 3 bottles. And this is really early, so any opportunity to get some sort of testimonial, I was excited about. So I was like, "Hey, yeah, wow, you're buying like third order, 3 bottles. What are you experiencing?" And this does happen fairly regularly where people are disappointed to share with me that they haven't noticed anything, right? And I could go down another thing where I didn't invent this to accomplish anything. Like I just happened to be in the space where I'm manufacturing the molecule and now the product's on the market. So I'm not actually emotionally invested in this work. I want it to work for people. And I'm lucky that it works for a lot of people. But when they share it doesn't work, they feel like disappointed to share this with me. And then he goes, and I got to be careful. He goes, "Hey, does it help with pain? Like I had some pain in my knuckles. Does it help with that?" And I was like, "Well, we've got testimonials that share that." It's like, "Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's helped." And then also, I used to have this click, click, click in my knee, and that's all gone now. And I'm like, "Shame you didn't notice anything." And then he goes, "And also, I'm about to go. I hadn't jogged in like 3 years, and I'm about to go for my fifth jog. Like I'm back to jogging again." And then to your topic, he shares, I have to share with you, Chris. I have less stress at work. And let me be clear, it's the same job, it's the same people, it's the same stress. I just feel less stress at work. Right. So I think you're exactly onto something. And it makes perfect sense. If you're, again, reducing the negative impact of stress mitochondria, you should have head to toe testimonials, including kind of the emotional impact.
And so wait, so he started out by saying that he didn't notice anything.
Nothing. And by the way, when he said that, part of me was like, okay, but you're buying 3 bottles. Maybe you're just tied into the longevity piece, which is a reasonable argument. These rats live 90% longer than the control group. This is your goal. I mean, it's the molecule that has the longest longevity experimental result, period. Like, I get it. And then he went on to share, 3 things that he's noticed in a
That's
positive way.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that he's getting results. That's awesome. Yeah, and so okay, so that kind of then takes me into that story takes me into the next question, but it's also something that you brought up earlier when we're talking about longevity and we're talking about the perception of what aging actually means
Mhm.
and what it means to get older. And, I've had so many experts on this podcast talking about aging is not what media necessarily says that it is. And I love getting perspectives from my experts about what aging actually means. So let's talk about some of the myths,
Mm.
especially when it comes to declining, especially when it comes to the fact that declining is quote unquote inevitable. What are some of the biggest misconceptions about getting older in your mind?
Yeah, so I think I have 2 answers, right? Just like I had 2 answers about living longer, which are, we've got this understanding of decline, and then you can see the outliers. Like certainly my mom's generation grew up thinking at one point, like I do a lot of stuff. I do a lot of biohacking. I work out a lot. By the way, I really enjoy it. But she's like, what are you trying to do? Like, why are you doing this? And it's like, I don't really understand the question. Like, why would I do anything else? Why would I do anything other than being really, really healthy? Because it feels so good. It allows me to accomplish so much. So there is a absolute, I think, generational gap. Having said that, there's people in my mom's generation who are absolutely thriving. I think, Robert F. Kennedy is an example. That guy is ripped, and I don't know, is he in his 70s? Like this is the target. And so I think there wasn't really a target. Life was about retiring and just sitting somewhere and not doing anything, and that kind of whole thing has changed. I think if we don't have significant advancements, right? So one, live healthier, take care of yourself, put good things in your body, put only good things in your body. I think like the humans can live to 122, right? We already have Jean Clement who lived to 122. But we do start coming against some kind of immediate walls that I think we're going to need science to overcome. So I love David Sinclair's perspective, his in the information theory of aging, which I mean, the evidence. So his thought process is just information is getting garbled. You have information as a baby to grow into a teenager, to grow into an adult, and finally arrive at a fully developed prefrontal cortex, right? And then there is this decline. From a evolutionary standpoint, the decline in my mind is like, we don't need you anymore, right? Like your offspring are here. If you actually delivered value to making sure your genes continued, then we would have figured out, if evolution would have figured out a way to keep you around. Um, but you look at this information a theory of aging, which says, okay, now it's just getting gummed up, right? He uses the example of a CD, and the CD's gotten scratched. So when you hear the music, it's not playing right anymore. And he says he believes that we can reverse it. I also support this. And his example is, I can take any one of your cell, Tansy. I can take anything that's got your DNA in it, and we can make a baby Tansy, right? Everything for the most youthful Tansy is in every cell of your body. We've just got to figure out how to pull the levers to roll things back. And I think that's what's going to happen. So I think, there's the perspective of like, where are we today? And then where are we going to be tomorrow? And just tomorrow is going to be so much faster than we realize.
Yeah. And that's amazing. And so I want to even just take that concept and just shift just a little bit. Here on the Energy Fix, we talk a lot about energy. We
Mm,
talk a lot about that part, the life force within us. So looking past the physical body and how it's healing, the inflammation decreasing and the cognitive functioning becoming a little bit more sharper, right? Looking past that, how does ESS60 shift how people feel on the daily when it comes to their life force and
mhm.
their energetic impact? If you can answer that,
Yeah,
if
well,
you have information about that, I would love to know about that side of it too.
yeah, I there's a company called Peak Potentials that is created by a man named T. Harv Eker. He wrote The
Yeah,
Millionaire Next Door. No, he wrote The Millionaire Mindset.
yeah, millionaire mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty. I don't know if you've ever been to any of Peak Potential's training, but it's absolutely amazing. And it talks about energy is everything. And I love this concept. He says, you should go somewhere with so much enthusiasm and energy that you catch on fire. And this is obviously from a business perspective, that you catch on fire. And when you catch on fire and people come to watch you burn, charge them. Right? Like energy is everything. And you want to have that energy. But what is the energy source in our bodies? Right? Okay, it's food, right? The food turns into, but the food goes to drive the mitochondria, which goes to create the ATP, which is the energy source that every cell uses. So if you're having a positive impact on mitochondria, you're going to have a positive impact on your energy, your overall energy. And so I think maybe, I don't know if this is relevant, it's the first thing that popped in my mind. You think about maybe a negative experience related to energy is jet lag, right? Like, so you cross a couple time zones. My wife and I actually recently got back from Singapore. It's the other side. Like, it's literally 1 hour off of exactly 12 hours off, right? So it's 11 hours off, I think. Um, Actually, it's 9. So this is a place where you would typically experience a lot of jet lag, right? So you're like, can't get up, you're waking up and my wife and I just don't experience that. Like you'll wake up and go back to sleep. Oh, I'm a little sleepy in the middle of the day, but it's not something that you can't enjoy your day through, right? Like, so it's not no effect, but it's just not this jet lag that takes people out of the game. And I think that's a very good example of energy and what happens with energy. And I think it's very much tied to uh, the sleep, right? And I'll share this. We've got my favorite. I have an interesting testimonial about sleep, but my favorite that's not me is my business coach shares that for 50 years he needed an alarm clock to wake up, and when he's taking MyVitalC on a regular basis, he wakes up before the alarm clock, right? And he's a business coach, right? So he's got late dinners, he's got wine, mixers, whatever. But he doesn't need his alarm clock when he's taking the product. When he's off it for about 10 days, and that's what the literature says is the time it takes to clear this from your body. When he's off of it at about 10 days, he starts to need the alarm clock again. And so that positive impact on sleep, I think, allows us to get deeper, higher quality sleep. So when we're in this jet lag situation, we're recovering so much faster when we actually do sleep.
Mm. I wrote down an equation as you were speaking, and the equation is mitochondria plus deeper sleep plus perception change
Mm,
plus aging
mm.
equals energy change, overall energy change. And so, as you were talking, like that makes complete sense. It starts really at that foundational piece, which is the mitochondria, and
Mm.
then starts to shift and allow every other layer of your human experience deepen and expand so that in the longevity, the aging process you aren't necessarily experiencing some of those declines and feeling like a shell of who you used to be.
Yeah. And I
Oh,
can talk, so that kind of leads me into kind of the biological age tests that I've taken, which are so much fun. So one of them at the recent Health Optimization Summit, the booth next to us was a guy who's got a piece of equipment that looks at ESR. So this is erythrocyte sedimentation rate. This is an indication of your inflammatory status. I could get into the details of the technology. It's pretty amazing. For like $300, you get a device. For $10, you get a test to look at your inflammatory status in 30 minutes. So kind of cool that you could have an at-home inflammatory status test. I took his test. It had me 20 plus years younger biologically than my chronological age. The next one, glycan age. So that's looking at glycans and how they attach to different molecules in your blood, and which turned out to be a really good inflammation indicator of inflammation. And glycan age had me, I think it was 31 years younger than my chronological age, right? So it had me at 21 when I took the test. I don't even, you don't want to be younger biologically. Can you still drink if you're younger than 21 biologically?
I
Uh,
don't know. I don't know. Let's not test that out, but go ahead.
yeah. And then the final is, so I don't like the result as much as I like the direction. So my DN age when I was 51 had me at 59. And I was not happy about this. I'm like, I'm doing all the things. Like, how is my biological age older? I took it 3 years later. So at 54, it had me at 58. So in 3 years, I had regressed 1 year. So if you're doing the math, if you look at the Rejuvenation Olympics, right, where Brian Johnson is like posting his data and is leading everybody because he's only aging at zero point 0.6 or so years per year. I actually aged minus 0.3 3 over 3 years. And so that would have actually had me on the leaderboard. So those are just some examples. And I think, there's interesting debates about the actual meaning of a biological age test, but from a qualitative, hey, are you moving in the right direction? I think it's very valuable. And those were looking at basically my inflammatory status.
Mm. Oh, fascinating. You know, earlier we talked about making sure that you are being very diligent in supporting buying putting your dollar towards companies that are doing the research that are ethical in what they're saying that they're putting in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so for any of the listeners who maybe feel overwhelmed by wellness products and don't really even know how to look or to where to find this information about who they can trust, what is your recommendation? Where can people start
Wow.
looking?
Yeah, so I would like to say I have good news and bad news. I think I only have bad news. So I got to interview Dr. Tom O'Brien. He's with the Autoimmune Fix. And one of the things he says is you need to spend 1 hour per week focused on your health. right? And so you've got to dig in. And I think it's, listen to podcasts like yours, dig in and find the leaders, find the people who are running the company, find the scientists behind the company, and get a feel for them. Do you have this? Are they the kind of person that you would buy something off of if they were, at a dinner party? And I think that's what you have to do, which means more work, right? Like dig into it. It also means I love the concept of being your own health, the CEO of your own health, right? You've got to take it in charge. By the way, I know if you or I were only spending 1 hour a week, we must be on vacation and doing a reasonably good job because I'm spending like, I don't know, 5 hours a day on research, digging into, different modalities and stuff.
I know you said 1 hour. I'm like, that's it? Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's very true. And I agree with you. I mean, even I'm sure you could probably agree, even being in this world, being passionate about this information in this world, we still have to do our due diligence and it's a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, you start to learn quickly who you can trust and what does work and et cetera, et cetera. So I like that. I like that tip.
You gotta do the hard work. And and honestly, like if you're not like you or me, it may be boring work, right? So success comes out of the boring work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as we start wrapping up here, before you really tell us where you're hanging out and what's going on, I would love to ask you one little question, one personal question.
Okay.
And that is, this is just a fun one, all right?
Yeah.
That is, if you could whisper one thing into your younger self's ear, back before the molecule, before the
Mhm.
patents, before the science, what would that one thing be that you could learn to just allow yourself to shift your perception, that you could learn to let go, that you could learn to maybe change where you're at now?
Yeah, I think and this is valuable across many points, which is make mistakes faster, right? Because we get bogged down in not taking action, in being concerned about making mistakes. The faster you make mistakes, the faster you find success. And that's again, success financially, success in a business, success in a relationship, success with your health. I don't know exactly how you make mistakes faster, but try things, right? Like, don't hold back, try things, like do your research, but try things. Um, and I think like you find happiness in doing hard things. And maybe one of the hardest things is to go down a path that looks like you might be able to make a mistake. And I think you should really push yourself to make mistakes faster.
I think that's the most perfect answer that I've heard because honestly, re reminding people that mistakes are okay and that is part of the journey and the process. Hey, look at you. You were the perfect example of this as you were just trying to expand and step into where you're at now, right? Like, so important. That's beautiful.
Hmm.
All right, Chris, where can people find you? Where are you hanging out? What are you excited about in your work?
Okay, so we're excited to be starting clinical trials. We've got a call next Wednesday that I'm excited, looking forward to. I wish it was sooner. So absolutely excited about that. We made a link for your audience, right? So if they're interested, if they've heard something here and they're interested, one, they can reach out to us. Our customer service team is amazing. They actually have like 1,000 five-star reviews on Google, so they can answer almost any question. And if you insist on getting to me, that'll actually happen. The URL is myvitalc.com/the energy fix. And they can find a coupon code on that page for $15 off. I'm going to give you a couple pieces of advice. One, there's also a freebie. We have a 18 biohacking tips that's kind of accrued from the 55 experts in longevity that I interviewed, kind of pulled together the best 18 biohacking tips. So that's a freebie that you can get there. Uh, We sell our products. So this ESS60 molecule, we sell it in three oils: olive oil, MCT oil, and avocado oil. People ask which one should I try. We always recommend the olive oil for two reasons. The first is we're a research-based organization, and almost all the research is on olive oil with the ESS60 molecule. The next is it's actually got the highest concentration of the ESS60 molecule. So you have a 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, zero point 0.6 in avocado oil, and then 0.3 in MCT oil. So shoot for the olive oil first. Our most popular packages, we have this inside out. We actually have some topical products and people will take inside. Great way to, it's a great anti-aging package. Um, so that's that. I also have my book, Live Longer and Better. So you can get it on Amazon for $19.95. But I have a charity piece that I'm really proud of on our website. If you go to the website, it's not in the main page. You still want to land at myvitalc.com/the energy fix, pick up that coupon code, and then find in the menu structure the book. If you pay 10 extra dollars, I'll autograph the book for you. And the full $10 fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember the movie The Sound of Freedom, an amazing movie about a horrific topic, which is child sex trafficking, which should be off of our planet yesterday. Operation Underground Railroad is doing an amazing job doing that. So the full signature fee, autograph fee, goes directly to Operation Underground Railroad. So I'm very excited about that. I have a lot of content. I do have a podcast called Live Beyond the Norms, and I have social media, which you can find at MyVitalC. Just search up MyVitalC, and I share lots of tips and tricks and biohacking ideas and concepts and interviews with researchers who are doing biohacking on social media. Instagram and TikTok are doing pretty good right now.
Wow. First, thank you so much for donating to such an amazing charity.
Mm.
That is so heart forward. Wow. Yeah. Ugh. And all of those links will be down in the show notes as always. So head on down there, click that link, and go get your coupon code and get your hands on all of this stuff that we talked about today. What an incredible opportunity for humanity, for
Mm.
humankind. So thank you so much. Any last words that you want to lay on the hearts of the listeners for today?
Oh, no, Tansy, I just want to thank you, like what you're doing with your podcast. Again, obviously we're of like mind to spend time accumulating information and then spend time sharing it with other people. I think that's great. And your message will resonate the way you tell it, different than, by the way, I love how you tell your message, and different than me. So thank you for kind of being in the space and sharing knowledge with people.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all the work that you're doing and how you're really expanding humanity in such a needed way. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you.